So, chapter 8 is about managing change and innovation. Now, at the outset, you got to understand that change is the only constant. Change is present everywhere, literally in every field, whether you're in business, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your career, anything that you do is subject to change. There's nothing that will not change forever. So it has to be there, and change is something that you need to embrace, and change is something that you want to initiate and enjoy the process of changing itself. And I'm sure you all understand and appreciate that innovation is something that keeps the organization in front of competition. If you want to sustain your competitive advantage, if you want to keep your market share, and if you want to be continue to be profitable, you have to continue to innovate. It could be creating new products, creating new services, or changing your strategies, changing your approaches, or entering new markets, or creating needs that never existed before and fulfilling those needs with creative products themselves. So change and innovation, I think they go in hand, because unless employees and organizations and they're willing to change, either change technologies, change their strategies, change their approaches, change their training methods, you will not be able to sustain innovation for too long, because innovation is driven by your willingness to change, your adaptation towards change itself. Let's get into the topic itself. Today's chapter, the learning objectives, we're going to define what organizational change is, and we'll compare and contrast views on the change process itself. And of course, no change, is always accepted with open arms. We try and resist change. We don't feel like changing because we're happy in our comfort zone, and we don't want to change most of the times. So there is plenty of resistance from individuals, from employees, from people. Whenever you try to change something, change a process, change a policy, use a different technology, I mean, we are always going to be met with some kind of resistance to change. So, how do you manage this resistance to change is the second objective for today's class. And then, third learning objective is describe what managers need to know about employee stress. Obviously, we are discussing change. And if we have to rapidly adapt to change and there is pressure, there is something that's creating extra stressful conditions on us, we got to understand how stress impacts our personal lives, the way it impacts our work performance, and how do we cope with change and how do we cope with stress. Both are important things that we need to discuss and understand. So, as managers, we'll have to manage our own stress levels, and we should be good at managing the stress levels of employees, and also keep them motivated at the same time so that they don't feel stressed out, they don't feel psychologically drained, it doesn't adversely affect their health. And what kind of things that the organization can do so that employees can de-stress, can feel less of that stress and use their energies for being innovative, for supporting new product development, for supporting different approaches and strategies. That's the key. Then the last objective, learning objective for this chapter is discuss techniques for stimulating innovation. Now, innovation doesn't happen unless you get the kind of support from the organization. Companies have to create the right kind of culture, support the right kind of organizational values, create processes and systems in place, and support employees with resources. Because unless you have resources, how are you going to even try and innovate? And do you have the time available with you? Do you have a team that can work on creative ideas and convert those ideas into great products, new products, or new services? So, what kind of resources would you require? What kind of cultural support would you require? What values, what tolerance of risk, and what tolerance of failure is there within the company? Unless organizations are having open cultures where criticism is fine, where new ideas are accepted and taken seriously, that teamwork is valued. Unless you have all those kind of supporting elements, innovation is not going to stay for too long. And if you stop innovating, you're out of business. So that's the fourth learning objective for today's class. So the first learning objective, defining change, organizational change. and compare and contrast views on the change process. Again, I just want to remind you change is something that has happened to us, will continue to happen to us at the individual level, at the organizational level, at the country level. Tomorrow, we might see a change in the president, we might see a change in the government policies, we might see plenty of changes that are macro level. And obviously, these kind of changes will impact how organizations work, how monetary and fiscal policies will change, evolve over a period of time. Obviously, these changes will impact how, say, U.S. Interacts with China, and how it does its business and transacts business with other countries. So obviously, change is something that's always there, and that's why you got to understand the nature of change, and how do you instill a process for change? How do you let employees or individuals embrace change? And that's change is a good thing to have. It's not something that you should be fearful of. It's not something that you should dread, but you should embrace and be happy with it. So well, let's understand what the organizational change is, and how do we compare and contrast different views on change process itself. Now, changes at the organizational context can be limited to three categories broadly. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. You can go granular, but let's talk about the three categories of change at the organizational level. Structures. See, we discussed in one of the previous chapters, organization structure is required for defining the authority and the responsibility relationships, how work is organized, how tasks and activities are allocated, how resources can be distributed. So structure actually tells you communication process, downward communication, upward communication, communication at the same level, lateral communication. So an organization structure can change. Suppose we were having initially a product departmentation. You could change it from a product departmentation to something much more complex, like say a matrix organization. I don't know how many of you recall from the previous chapters. We had product departmentation, we had functional departmentation, we could have process departmentation, we could have matrix organizations. Organization structures can be mechanistic structures or organic structures. Mechanistic structures are more formalized, highly centralized, highly specialized, and very complex structures are called mechanistic structures. Structures that are very flexible, low on formalization, low on centralization or decentralized, or low on complexity or low on specialization are called as organic structures. So, what kind of structure fits your business? What kind of structure fits the current scenario? And that's something that always can change. You don't have to change the entire structure. You might add a staff function. You have line functions who report directly to their supervisor. You might create a staff position, an advisory kind of function that you think is going to be helpful right now. That's a structural change. Even small changes to the structure are structural changes. You don't have to completely reorganize the structure. That can happen. Suppose if one company merges with another company, or if one company takes over another company, a lot of structural changes. Departments can be combined, certain positions will have to be let go. You need to redefine new job titles, you need to reorganize tasks and activities. So there's plenty of structural changes when two companies come together, either in the form of a merger or an acquisition. So changes can vary from very small changes, or little adjustments are also change in structure, or changes can be a complete overhaul of the organization structure. Now, changes, as I said, also relate to the second point, which is here, authority relationships. How do I report to my boss? Do I report directly, or do I report through some other person in between? That's a authority relationship. I cannot bypass the organization structure. So obviously, you can create an additional layer if you think reporting has to be routed through somebody or routed through a particular position. So authority relationships sometimes can change. Coordinating mechanisms, like how do we coordinate between departments? Right now, if you look at it, we have Zoom meetings. So we use a lot of video calling so that we can coordinate activities. There's no duplication of work. There's no redundancy between departments. So technology can change the way we work. I don't know if you know this, but technology and Zoom sessions post COVID and pandemic has just increased the volume of work. We have more meetings these days. We have a wider gamut of activities and responsibilities that we need to shoulder. So things have changed a lot since the COVID-19, right? The way work has been organized, the amount of quantum of work that is given to each employee, everything has changed. Job redesign. My existing job, you could possibly add some more responsibilities. You could enlarge my job. You could add responsibilities at the same level. It's called job enlargement. Or you could add higher level activities to my job responsibilities, some more planning, some more strategizing. This is what we call in HR as job enrichment, because you're enriching whatever job that I'm performing right now. You're giving me higher level responsibilities. That's also a classical example of job redesign, but it's also called as job enrichment. Spans of control. Right now, I might be controlling I'm supposed to be controlling 3 employees. I'm supervising them. You might add an additional employee whom I have to supervise. That can change because work is reorganized. Maybe my span of control has become wider. So of course it can create stress. Any change can create stress on employees, on an individual, on teams. It can create additional stress and pressure. So that's what we have to deal with at the next part of the chapter. We'll get there. So these are the first category of changes that we can discuss. The second category of changes that are here, technology. I think you understand, and technology keeps changing. You could computerize work, you could bring in automation, you can have robotics in, say, production. You could replace a few individuals with a lot of artificial intelligence, plenty of programming that can actually replace a few individuals. Technology gets us to learn, gets us to be more efficient, but also sometimes it can let people go. I mean, and unemployment issues can be there for a while because of technology. Work processes, those can change. So how communication happens at the workplace, how planning happens at the workplace, these are all processes. So those work processes can be changed. Work methods. What are the tools? What are the methods? What are the techniques that we use? What are the templates that we use for making decisions, for collecting data, for analyzing data? So work methods might change. So equipment, obviously you understand any production location where manufacturing is happening, you want the state of the art, technologies. So equipment might change. Right now, all of us need, access to high-speed internet. We need our own laptops. I mean, this was not so necessary, at least during a conventional class lecture where all of you came to the classroom and I taught. But now the equipment has changed. Each one of us has to be having a connection to the internet. Sometimes we have issues with Zoom. Sometimes we might have issues with, power outages, or we might have issues with internet speed. So equipment, access to certain services, all that this has become necessary because of the pandemic itself. These are changes, and not all changes are, easy. You need adaptation. You need to embrace it, and sometimes you feel stressed out. There's nothing wrong. Let's accept it. We all feel a bit of stress when we have to change. Then the last category is perhaps the most important element or category of change. People. How many of you believe that you've changed over a period of time? You are not the same person you were like 10 years ago. Right now, you're a completely different person. Would you agree?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
your attitudes have changed. Your expectations of yourself and say your friends, your community, expectations from the country, everything has changed. Your expectations of what you think is a good career for yourself, those have changed. Your perceptions. Let me be honest, like your generation of people, I mean, you students have great perceptions. You're very open minded, you're more embracing, and you're accommodating. Much, much more, better as a generation than, say, our generation. That's my perception about you. And I get that kind of perception. I hold that kind of perception because when I interact with students of your age, I feel super happy because you're much more accommodating, you're kinder, you're compassionate, you're not very rigid on what you think, you're much more flexible, you're very capable, you're multitasking, you embrace technology, you're willing to listen and learn quickly. So all those wonderful things that your generation has, along with the technology, access to technology that you guys have, makes your generation perhaps the luckiest generation as of now. So to me, you could be, you're like the torch bearers. You determine where the planet is heading. So investing in skills, investing in the right attitudes, equipping yourself with the skills and competences required for success, and then being responsible towards your family, towards the community, towards the planet. I think these are the key. And I'm sure you're all better than us. If we have brought the earth to this point of time, it's your previous generations which did not do enough. We could have done better. But luckily for us, we think the world is in safer hands. You guys are going to take it better towards a better direction. You actually evidence a lot of leadership qualities, personal leadership qualities. So to me, that's a key. Your behaviors can change, and our behaviors always change. So a change is something that happens at the structural level, job level, at the authority level, coordinating level. It can change at the technology, work process, methods, and equipment level, and plenty of changes to individuals, employees, their attitudes, expectations, their perceptions keep changing, and their behaviors obviously get keep changing. Now, change is something that's also driven not just by what stays within the company, like in the previous slide. Change also happens because of external factors. What happens at the marketplace definitely influences the company. So, say changes in how other competitors are reacting, that has an impact. How customers' preferences and lifestyles are changing, that has an impact. Government laws and regulations, compliance issues that keep changing and that are different from one country to another country, from one region to another region, has an impact on our organizational policies, methods, and processes that we have in place. Technology development. I was just reading MIT. They have done experiments to show that they have a very advanced algorithm that they have created. They have developed an algorithm which determines COVID-19 positive cases by the breathing that a particular person has, the patterns of breathing, and the sound of the cough. Even if you're asymptomatic, but if you have the COVID 19, the algorithm can determine just by the sound of the cough and the breathing patterns, it can figure out if you're a COVID 19 positive or negative. And the kind of success rate that they have had is close to 98%. So the algorithm actually predicts COVID 19 positive cases, even for those who are asymptomatic, 98% of the time, accurately. And that's technology. I don't know how they're going to implement it. I was just reading that today, MIT. So, labor markets, like look at the composition of the workforce. Is your workforce skilled? Are they computer literate? Can they are they multilingual? Are they having experience working in different cultures? Are they mobile enough? So, and the age also. How productive are they? How capable are they? So, all these factors will determine how organizations have to prepare for the future. So, labor markets have a huge bearing on what the company should do, including the unions. Certain countries, there are no unions. Certain countries, unions play a major part. So obviously, the labor markets drive policies and approaches and strategies within the company. Economic changes, I don't have to tell you that. Whatever happens to companies and whatever changes have to be initiated within a company definitely are impacted by economic changes. Say if you have a lot of unemployment, recessionary conditions, or conditions that relate to inflationary prices, or changes in the monetary and fiscal policies by the government itself, any of the interest rate changes, for example, all these have an impact on consumption patterns, employees or public taking loans. So everything that happens at the macroeconomic level has an impact on organizations, and organizations have to make those necessary changes to adapt to the economic changes, including what is happening right now. Most businesses that were dependent on, sales at the point of purchase, where somebody could come, customers could walk into your store and buy products. Now they have to depend on more on email marketing, on online sales, creating websites and improving their website experiences, giving online promotion and pushing those online promotion, emails to possible customers, using social media extensively, and depending on a lot of data and doing a lot of data analytics to determine who are our prospective customers. How do you send out those emails or pop-up messages on social media? How do you get the maximum attention of your prospective customers? So they had to rely and transition big time on online marketing efforts, email marketing efforts, and social media marketing efforts from the conventional sales at the store. So these changes are definitely impacting the way we look at our business, how we want to sustain our business, how do we want to keep our market share, and how do we generate revenue streams which can keep us sustainable. So all these external factors have an impact on change itself. Internal factors, as I was saying, all those external factors will influence what strategy will you use as a company. Do you cut costs right now? Cost cutting? I think most companies have done that, including the impact that they have created on composition of the workforce. A lot of layoffs, furloughs. They've got rid of many of their employees. They don't need as many people now. It's sad. It is very sad because it's increasing the unemployment rates. It's creating enormous suffering on individuals and their families. But that's reality. Because of whatever loss of business, loss of, decrease in customer inflows, um, you know, um, companies have had to let go a lot of employees. So the composition of the workforce might be it's shrinking in size. The type of people that you might require, you don't want highly paid employees anymore. So you might actually depend on a low cost, highly skilled workforce, and maybe younger workforce who are willing to take up the job because they don't have a job as yet. So all these are internal factors. And then, of course, the employee attitudes. When you have, say, 100 employees being laid off in my company, what's my attitude? How do I feel? What's my motivation level? What's the morale that I have? So these are attitudes which will determine how productive I am. What kind of employee satisfaction will you have? And you got to make sure that whatever employees that you're retaining, I'm sure you let go a lot of employees because of the COVID crisis, but whoever you're retaining, you got to make sure those employees are still motivated, they are on a high morale, and they're willing to contribute, and they actually perform on a consistent basis. So these are internal factors that can be affected by whatever happens at the external level. Now, the key is to initiate those changes. I mean, you can't wait till a change hits you and you're not prepared for it. Like, say, for example, Nokia is a company where every other manufacturer like Sony Ericsson and Samsung were jumping onto Android, and Apple created its own operating system, the iOS, the mobile operating system that it has. Nokia, which was the leader in mobile phones, stuck to their Symbian operating system. You're not going to survive that way. If you get invested in terms of time and effort and money on things that might not be for the future, you're in trouble. Nokia had this first mover advantage. They had such a large customer base. They were like ruling the mobile phone markets. They were pioneers in that technology, and they struggled. And if you look at Nokia share, it's nowhere right now. So obviously you need to change. So change is something that you have to create. You need to initiate it. Samsung, for example, they launched so many. They had their S20 series earlier this year. Last month, they came up with their Note 20 series. And the rumor goes that their S30 series, the next flagship, is due for launch in January, as early as January, like more than a month earlier than their normal product launch cycle. They launch like February end towards March, and they start selling in March. But they want to shrink it. It's like, okay, iPhone launched their new iPhone 12 series last month. They said, we want to not give Apple the advantage for too long. Let's come with our S30 series. That's what is Samsung's strategy because they will initiate change. And by the time, they launch their S30 series in January, they might as well say, we used to normally launch March. Let's launch our Fold 3 in March. They might come with a new, extremely innovative, disruptive technology in March. So, this way, they want to take the whole mobile phone industry by storm. Well, my understanding is they have actually taken back the second, I mean, they have taken back the first spot from Huawei. Huawei, the Chinese mobile manufacturer, they were number one globally. And I think Samsung actually took their spot back again. Now, Samsung is number one. This is from today's news. So we're not even talking Apple. We're talking how Huawei was number one, and the latest reports say in terms of market share, Samsung has taken the number one spot back from Huawei. Apple is, I think, a third, a close third. So change is something that you want to create and continue to create because change is important for innovation. Now, two different ways of looking at change. One is called the calm waters. The other one is called the whitewater rapids. These are two metaphors that you could use to understand the nature of change. The calm waters, meaning that you have a little boat going in the calm waters, nothing is changing. You might occasionally have a disturbance. You might occasionally have a storm that you have to manage and you will survive. That's a calm waters metaphor. But I think what's happened because of the pandemic, the COVID 19, it's not calm waters anymore. It's whitewater rapids. So you have yours is perhaps a boat with a lot of people in it, and it's very turbulent out there. The river is rapid. You're being tossed over again and again. You're rocking. The boat is really rocking. You need to steady the boat. You need to make sure that people are not thrown off into the water, that they can still work. Whoever is traveling in the boat, whoever is working in the company, they need to learn to adapt quickly. They need to change fast. And somehow they have to come up with the right approaches and strategies so that they can stay afloat in white waters, which are very rapid. So, two different kinds of approaches. Sometimes the sailing is easy, it's all calm out there. You're not being hit by external factors, you're not being hit by competition, or you're not being hit by government policy. And once in a while, something might hit you, create a small disturbance that is calm waters. So, change is not very drastic, it's not revolutionary kind of change. You can adapt slowly, you have time. But white waters is when competition is intense, external factors like COVID is throwing your business out of control, and you exactly don't know what you're doing. You can't predict the future. It's whitewater rapids. So decisions that you take, strategies that you create can work for you, can go against you. So you got to be super cautious, but yet you have to be fast, or else you will lose whatever business you're holding. You will lose even our existing customers, and the customer base is shrinking because of what the COVID has done. So you got to be much more prepared in whitewater scenario. And right now, I think most companies, most businesses are in this situation of whitewater rapids. Now, if you're having calm waters, you have three steps for changing. Kurt Levin, I can put that on the chat right now so that you understand this guy's name. He's the person who talked about the change model. He's a pioneer in something that we describe as force field analysis. So he says when you define your current position right now, that's an equilibrium position you are in. Today, what the company is, what our school is, for example, is in a state of equilibrium. We seem to be doing good in terms of registrations, enrollments. We seem to be good in doing in terms of employee morale and faculty willingness and their commitment and motivation. So that's a status quo. That's what we call as an equilibrium. But are we happy? Should we be very complacent and be extremely happy with where we are? The answer is no. We want to be in a better position. So you need to unfreeze the current state. You need to move from your current state. So you need to break the equilibrium. That means you have to change. You change. And then when you reach a better position, say in 6 months or 1 year's time, you need to make sure that you're refreezing. So you unfreeze, you actually create the change process. And then when you get to a better position as a company, you need to refreeze and reinforce that new position. You want to hold on to better enrollments, better registrations, better graduation rates, greater learning experiences for students, better retention of your own employees, maybe better impact that we create on our stakeholders, say higher quality of intellectual capital that we are creating, better research that we do, better consulting we can do, better contributions to the industry that we can do. All that if you achieve in 1 year, the new position that you've created, you move from here to a better position. If you went to a better position, it's important that you refreeze. That means you reinforce it, you make it strong. Your current better position has to be strengthened. That's what we call as refreezing. So the first step, break the equilibrium. When you break the equilibrium, there might be resistance. Employees are not going to be happy. They will resist to change, but you have to educate them, give them information, facilitate change, support their, perceptions, give them the kind of training that they might require, try and reinforce, get the buy-in basically. You have to reinforce why we need to change. Why is this change important for all of us? It's a win-win situation. You need to explain that. And if some training is required, please give it. If some information might help, please give it. If rewards and recognition is important in moving, in adapting to the new change, in accepting new things and new approaches, have them in place. Create organizational systems that support that change. Once everybody changes, embraces new methods, embraces new technologies, we achieve some incremental change. We've become better now. We need to strengthen that position. That's what we call as refreezing. You don't want to go back to old methods. You don't want to go back to your old state. You want to reinforce the current state, which is much better than the older state that your company existed in. So that's a three-step process. You break the equilibrium, you change, you come to a new state, and you create an equilibrium by reinforcing that new position. So that's what Kurt Levin spoke about. And this is possible when you have calm waters. Okay. When it's rapid, whitewater rapids, I think everything has to be faster. Everything has to be, dynamic. And I think you need people who are willing to commit, or you need people who are still passionate and who put the company first and who think the school matters more than me as an individual. Unless we realize that we are not going to be able to save the boat during whitewater rapids. Calm waters, you just have the additional time to change and reinforce the change and create a new equilibrium. But whitewater rapids, you're being tossed. You cannot predict anything. There's so much of uncertainty out there. So you need people, great leadership, employees who are committed, and the passion that the organization comes first. Let's save the place and let's create some semblance of certainty. Let's work together. Let's collaborate together. Let's create teams that will work. And let's take decisions quick and take the right decisions as well. You did that, maybe you can overcome the crisis which is being created by the whitewater rapids. The pandemic itself is a proper example of whitewater rapids. So let's go back here. Yeah, whitewater rapids, leading a company in change, in an industry in change. See, this is something like a question that I might ask you in the midterm exam. I might say during the pandemic, how do you think a company should, change their strategy? Take any company and tell me how it was affected by COVID-19 and the pandemic. And what did they do? Say Starbucks, for example. You still see Starbucks, a lot of cars which drive in, wait for their orders, and then they drive away with their orders. Still, you have a steady flow of cars. People are using their mobile application for Starbucks. They know when to place an order. They know when the order is going to be delivered at the curbside, and then they drive in and take away their order. And you still have a very steady inflow. And the kind of Starbucks offerings, they have increased the number of offerings, the innovations that they have created in the range of offerings that Starbucks does. the quality of service that employees of Starbucks offer. So Starbucks has actually, managed to adapt to those kind of demanding situations created by the pandemic itself. And it's Whitewater Rapids, and then they're doing a decent job. So Starbucks is a classical example where they might have lost some business, but they're trying to still make ground. And that's being possible because they're thinking outside the box. They're being creative, they're innovative, and they want to offer the best kind of quality service without compromising on safety, without compromising on compliance to whatever the 6 feet social distancing, keeping the mask on, and making sure your customers are safe, your employees are safe. So safety first, and everybody's welfare first. But at the same time, how can we deliver faster, make it more convenient, make it more safer, increase the range of opportunities and offerings that you might have, promotions that you might actually create for customers, because they're still taking time to come in and take your coffee and take your offerings. So there are companies that have done successfully. I might ask you this question: pick any company and discuss how they were hit by the pandemic, or what nice, good strategies they came up so that they can keep customers, they can keep their revenues, they can sustain their advantage. Now we go off to this important part, which we call as organization development. Now, whenever you have a change that you want to plan, organizational development is a key area which you want to focus on, because OD, organization development, it's a collection of interventions, tools, methods, techniques that you have in place, which will involve all organizational members. And the focus is purely on change, and also focused on attitudes and values. See, that's the key. If you ask me to change, and if you say let's do this, and I say but it won't work, no, it is not possible. It's difficult. But this might not be permitted. But this might not be feasible. Come on, we have a crisis. What's the harm in trying? What is the harm in and at least putting efforts? The buy-in is important. The commitment is important. Mobilizing action is important. That means it's to do with attitudes and values. What's my attitude? Do I want to help my students, or do I want to make it hard for them? My attitude is to help you guys, because it's already hard. The pandemic has created a lot of difficulties at the personal level, at the family level, at the organizational level. Everybody's job has become that much more challenging. And why do I want to add to your problems? No, my attitude is to facilitate learning, to facilitate as much as I can to support your learning experience. I'll do everything that is possible in my hands to make life that much more enjoyable. Your learning should be a joy. So that's the key. That's my attitude. And to me, I think every employee, whether it's in Starbucks or whether it's in the School of Management, it all boils down to how employees carry positive attitude towards their customers, towards how everybody is being challenged, what kind of difficulties people face. And if you do that, you come up with great product ideas, a lot of convenience, plenty of flexibility, promotions, empathizing with your customers. So, teamwork is possible. Right attitude actually changes a lot of things. So OD, organization development, is a collection of that interventions which channelizes efforts of employees and towards changing the culture at the workplace, because values and attitudes and beliefs and assumptions integrally are part of the organizational culture. It determines the level of flexibility that we have towards changing scenarios. If you're having Whitewater Rapids situation right now, I think the focus is just not purely on technology. It's also on values and attitudes. It's also on culture, how you treat your employees, how you treat your customers, how I treat my students, for example. I think that's the key. And if I focus there, I think change has a proper direction. Change will create proper impact on my employees. It'll create a positive impact on my business. And definitely it'll create a positive impact on profitability. Though there are no, strong research to show OD efforts directly impact profitability, but there is a lot of indirect impact on profitability of a company. Now, there's some interventions there, OD The field of OD, the subject called organization development, has a lot of interventions. It's based on action research. Plenty of uh, OB and OD consultants and researchers and scientists who have contributed to interventions. Some of the interventions are listed here. Survey feedback. The word is very self-explanatory. You want to conduct a survey for your employees and take feedback. Now, you might ask me what feedback you're asking for. What is the survey that you're focusing on? Surveys on the processes in the workplace. Surveys could be on how employees are satisfied. How surveys could actually focus on job-related issues. Surveys could be focused on how to enhance performance. What kind of training would help them do better at the workplace? So take surveys, take the feedback, and incorporate it into processes. Incorporate that feedback into offering training which is helpful, which is customized. Surveys can actually take inputs on leadership styles, management styles, job satisfaction levels. So, you take feedback from your employees, that is precious information. Those are nuggets of data and information which is very precious for the company. And survey feedback done to your employees is a great source. Suppose I'm doing a survey feedback of my salespeople. Salespeople are the ones who are talking to customers, and customers tell them, see, we have issues here, we have problems here, we have challenges here, we need these kind of services, we need this kind of convenience because of the pandemic. You're collecting that data from your salespeople. So obviously you change how you approach your customers, how to adapt to these kind of challenging situations. So your strategy, your processors, your methods, your teamwork, your product offerings all depend on collecting the right set of information from your employees, in this case, your salespeople. Now, then you have process consultation as a second intervention. Now, again, as I said in the previous one of the previous slides, organizations are made up of several processes. Something as simple as communication process. Look at how communication happens today. We don't meet, we don't see each other, we are not there in physical locations. We're all meeting via Zoom. Like today's class, for example. I think the key is to make sure we understand how important communication is. Guys, when you actually, say, for example, turn on your videos and ask questions, that is actually helping the communication process. I'm just speaking about one process, communication process. It cannot be one way, like the way it is in my class right now. Communication is a two-way process. So I want to ask you, do you agree that communication is an important process in organizations
Yeah.
Yeah.
between employees,
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
between employees and their the organization's customers?
Yeah.
No.
Definitely. I mean, your salespeople are talking to customers, right? And
Yeah.
communication between departments so that we know what others are doing in the organization is required, right? Who is doing what? And are we doing the same thing? We don't want redundancies. And communication is required between the company and the suppliers. Communication is required between the organization and the general public, the communities that we serve. So just understanding one communication process really well, and we want to make improvements in that communication process. It should be smooth, it should be two-way, it should take into consideration the kind of reports that we receive, the feedback that we get, and improve the communication within the company, between departments, with the suppliers, with the customers. I mean, communication is a key. Same is the case for team building. Now, if we team building is an exercise for us to understand the importance of teams and how do we form effective teams? How can we create teams that are high performing? That's the key. So team building lets you know how to create cohesion between team members. How do you create teams that have members who have complementary skills? How do you create teams that have a common purpose and a goal? And how do you create that mutual accountability? Everybody is equally accountable as individuals, and we're all accountable as a team. So there is individual and mutual accountability. There's a common purpose and a goal. We need to have complementary skills, and we want to be part of that team because we are one cohesive unit. We have goals that are way beyond and larger than individual goals. So that's team building. So you have to put in efforts for your employees to understand the importance of teams and the impact that it creates, the synergies that you might realize if you have great teams within the company. 3M, for example, has hundreds of teams working on new product ideas. I'm giving you a classical example. 3M as a company literally has, I don't know, 100,000 plus patents, and they create new products like crazy. It's all because of small little teams having members who are, complementary skills from different fields and expertise. They come together, they come with a great product idea, they work on those creative ideas, they get the support, resources, and 3M also tolerates risk and tolerates failure. And these teams come up with great product ideas that really work at the marketplace. So when you convert a creative idea into a new product or a product improvement, something that's useful, something that's novel, that is when you say you have an innovation. That's all because of small little teams working on hundreds of projects. Each of that is a new product idea, dear. So I just wanted you to understand how important it is to work in teams. I might be individually extraordinary, but when you put me in a team, I struggle. And that's a problem. Great companies depend on just not smart individuals, but those smart individuals who are able to come together. 3M, just look at 3M's philosophy. You have some great videos on their website. They have one physicist, one biologist, one microbiologist, another chemist, one manager, one accountant working together. Sometimes we might say, what are all these guys doing at the same table? It's because they are able to marry concepts, they're able to synergize, they are able to cross fertilize ideas and come up with something that's like, wow, customers need this. They did not know how to put it in words, but they're struggling for a solution. Here we have it. It's durable, it delivers on performance, it's cost effective, nobody has it. Come on, patent it. 3M does this all the time. If you go back and look at their website, each product category has hundreds and thousands of product options. 3M is such a successful company because of team building. I can't just emphasize how important, how good they are with team building, and also intergroup development. How do we? It's like you need to collaborate between departments, between groups. We need that win-win situation. We don't operate in silos. We're willing to share ideas. 3M has its own periodic table of innovations. One product category of innovations can be leveraged across several other product categories. It's because of the kind of intergroup, kind of collaboration that they have. They have teams, and these teams are also willing to collaborate with each other. So this way, great ideas just don't stay in silos. They are being shared. Knowledge is generated, knowledge is acquired, knowledge is actually stored, knowledge is transferred, knowledge is shared, and knowledge is being applied. This is a learning organization, dear. We talked about a learning organization. You remember? Does anybody remember that we were discussing a learning organization before? Peter Senji, the fifth discipline, right? So to me, 3M is a classical example of a learning organization. I have one of those questions in the midterm exam. Choose what do you understand by the term learning organization? What do you think it is? Can you can you suggest a company which is close to that learning organization? Just write a brief answer. This company, I think, is a learning organization because they have a shared vision, they have personal mastery, they have mental models, they have systems thinking, and they have team learning. Those are the five. Shared vision, everybody shares in the vision. They have personal mastery, everybody is good in what they do. And they create mental models which are positive. They're extremely positive in their attitudes and the outlook, mental models. You condition your mind in ways that you think this is possible, this is doable. Are willing to, incentivize action, will mobilize that kind of action. The mental models are very strong and supportive. They're facilitative. They're functional mental models. And then you have systems thinking. All of us are interconnected. 3M believes that everybody and everything is interconnected. Systems thinking and team learning. Learning doesn't happen by me sitting alone in the home. It doesn't. I need to talk to people. I need to understand their ways of thinking, their approaches. I need to learn from their experience as much as they are willing to learn from my experiences. So, learning happens in social settings. Learning happens because of strong and weak ties. Learning happens because of teamwork. And learning also happens because of intergroup teamwork or collaborations. I don't know. I tried to explain to you the importance of OD towards creating change, positive change. As much as you're dependent on technologies, it's about the people who drive those technologies. I have technology, but nobody uses it properly. I have technologies, but nobody wants to invest time into it. I mean, it's people who drive everything, dear. We are important. If I don't have students and I don't have a faculty, what's the use of Zoom technology? What's the use of other technologies? We have a technology, let's use it and use it positively. I learn from you guys, and whatever little I know, you're willing to learn from me. So we exchange ideas, we learn from each other. So it's a social setting. So for me, organization development is the key for change. The pandemic has created a crisis for humanity, but we need to adapt. We need to continue to work and see how we can help each other, how we can reduce that suffering, and how we can stay effective as individuals and as organizations. That's the key. Learning objective 2 in this chapter is managing resistance. Whenever I ask you to do something, whenever somebody asks me to do something, I'm not super happy. I'll always resist. I'll say, why? I have enough work. I don't want to do more. I don't want to try new things. That's not the case with me. I did Canvas. You won't believe it, guys. I can actually probably show you Canvas and see, let you know how much of work that went into Canvas. Do you see the modules here? Do you see the modules?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I actually say welcome page, tell me if you see it as I speak about it, because if you're not seeing dynamically the screen share, I can stop
No,
sharing.
we see it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I had to type in all that, the course outcomes, the course structure. And if you go every single page, it was created. I had to put my picture here, and I put a picture that relates to you guys. I didn't want to put myself in a proper suit and say, I'm a professor. I wanted to be in a casual shirt to say, oh, I'm like one of you. I put a very brief introduction, not talk too much about myself and bore you guys. And for me, learning this is every week. You won't believe, every Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock, I have a meeting with Everspring and with one of our own NYD employee. Her name is Beatrice from the Academic Technology Services Department. I go through this every week. So if I'll show you how much of work that's gone in. Of course, I put a nice picture. This is from Far Eastern Federal University in Vladivostok, where I went to teach. I like that picture, so I put that here. And it has everything: the Zoom room, the textbook, the reference book. I'll put NYD library, which we can always use. It's a great place to find. See, NYD spends a lot of money in library resources, to journal articles, to periodicals, to textbooks, and it's got a huge base. So if you just click that, it'll take you there. Harvard Business Review, they have plenty of good articles there, and I put all those here as an additional source for you. And then if you go to the next, succeeding in the course, I'll put all the assignments, the exams, and stuff. And when is the midterm exam is just for 15 points, final exam is for 15 points. So you have other stuff here. If you scroll down, it says what you're supposed to do. Please ask questions, share your experiences. I try to say what it takes to succeed in this course. Teamwork, how should be the teamwork done, the APA format, the final report. I just want to remind you, you got to attend those professional enrichment seminars, and you have to put two summaries, guys. Otherwise, you'll run out of time. 20 points, that's a lot of points on the final grade. Just attend any two and write summaries and put it on, submit it. 20 points is a lot. I know you're doing the team project. I know you will do this also is team, it's no longer individual. Class participation, I'm okay because I think you all speak and you all contribute. But what about the PE seminars? You need to write two PE seminars and summarize them and upload them. Please do that.
Where can we find them?
Oh, that's a good question that you're asking, dear. See, if you go back to module 5, okay, where you have all the assignments to be there, I sent you even notifications as emails to say where you'll find them. If you actually don't look at those notifications on time, you will run out of time quickly. So I'll show you. Final project is here. This is a Turnitin assignment that you will submit A1. So please submit it properly. This is a Turnitin 1 because it's a file upload and you will be compared on Turnitin for similarity. So don't cut, copy, paste, rephrase, write it in your own words. I can show you where you can, if you go to PE seminars, PE professional enrichment, you see this? Tips and resources, School of Management Professional Enrichment Seminars. Click this. It'll show you all the seminars that you have. If you want, additional seminars are available also on NYT events. Either this or this, you have any. You can click both. You have many available here. Just attend two. Write me two summaries, upload them, finish the job. Please don't keep it pending. Okay?
So
I know.
I posted one. Did you see it? That was coming from the one I talked to you about. That was the student veteran event.
Tends to change. So most employees generally, when they're asked to change, asked to use new technologies like say Canvas, they resist. They say, this is too much. It's a lot of work. I'm not like that. I would like to learn new technologies as long as it's helping my students. If I feel something is helping, give them more information, maybe some videos for further reference, slides in one place, articles in one place, everything in one place, and it looks nice. The flow is great. I'll do that. So for me, I will definitely not resist to change, but most people do. So let's go back here. Why do they resist? Because of uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen, how admissions will pan out, how enrollments will go, whether students will ask use Canvas, will they like it? Uncertainty. So they're not willing to put that effort, but sadly you have to try. You will never discover something unless you try. You won't stumble on something unless you move. So to me, you should not be giving that excuse of uncertainty and not trying. You should try. Habit. Sometimes, habits are so strong, we don't want to change those habits. We are very, very comfortable with our existing habits. So, and habits are easy. You don't have to put much effort to do something because it's habitual. But if you have to do something that it's not a habit for you, it requires extra effort, and that's why they resist change. So maybe at your age, you should focus on creating the right habits. At my age, it's very difficult to let go old habits. They might be debilitating habits, bad habits, but habits become so strong. They're like stronger than your own true nature. So creating positive habits, habits that contribute to your success, good habits, is so strong. It's stronger than your own nature. So please, whenever you get a chance, try and create habits that work for you. Don't deal with habits that go against you, either your physical health or your mental health or your career progress. Any habit that's really not going to help any of these, throw them out of the window. Get rid of them because you're still young. At a later stage, it's very difficult to get rid of habits and cultivate good ones. Young age, you're flexible. You can get rid of something quickly. You can cultivate new habits. Those habits that really work for you in your favor, you can cultivate them quickly because you're fast, you're flexible, you have the energy and you have the flexibility. Concern over personal loss. Suppose you ask me to change something, I don't want to lose something that I already possess. I don't want to weaken my own position. I want to keep holding to something that belongs to me. So when you ask me to use new technology or when you ask somebody else to work with me, I might feel insecure. I might say, no, I don't want to share that responsibility. It's my job. I become territorial. I said, no, I don't want to let anybody do this. This is my job. But maybe it's not my job, it's our job. That we all are trying to help each other. It's not that I'm trying to take away your job, I'm trying to assist you in doing your job. So sometimes teamwork is important, but people take it wrong. Their perceptions and attitudes are negative, and they might think they're giving up something that belongs to them, that they possess. And that's one of the reasons why they resist change. They sometimes believe change is not in the organization's best interest. Some of the individuals might say this change is not going to be useful. It's not really going to work. The nay nay for anything that you want to do, they'll say no, no, no. I mean, you have such people. So it's a strong belief. You need to work around with such people. Somehow you need to get them on your side and let them buy into the change process itself. Not easy, all that I'm saying, but you have to, because resistance to change simply stifles growth, simply stifles movement in the right direction. Here we're talking of different techniques for reducing resistance to change. Here are the techniques. These are the techniques. Each has its own context where you can use it. Each of those techniques have some advantages and disadvantages. We'll go over them very quickly. Education and communication. I think you're part of that process. Why do you get educated? Not necessarily education is required for success in life, but education gets you the kind of experience and exposure. It prepares you better for life. Whether you want to be successful or not depends on several factors: how consistent you are, what's the kind of attitude that you carry, and what kind of support system you might have, family support. You got to be lucky also. But education definitely gets you better understanding. You appreciate the world better. You're more mature in your decision making. You are systematic when you approach problems. So to me, you're doing the right thing by investing in education. You get the right set of skills and competences. So education and communication is a great thing. That the fact that I'm saying you guys are capable and that you're capable of changing quickly and successfully is because you're getting educated. You have the best American education possible. You're living with technology and you're capable of learning great things, say stuff in artificial intelligence, stuff in big data, data analytics, a lot of things, right? So anything that you're learning today, maybe coding. Some of you are interested in coding. Some of you are interested in fintech. All the latest things and the greatest things that are happening around education and that certification, CFA, CPA, I don't know, project management, some Six Sigma certification. It could be anything. All that education is actually giving you the kind of skills that you need. Any change, you're ready, you're prepared, you won't resist because you have a clear understanding. Again, it might not always work when there is mutual trust and credibility are not there. Nobody is willing to listen to you. Communication can be blocked because there's no trust. So education and communication can happen when there is mutual trust. Guys, I speak so much. If you guys have to speak to me, you got to have some measure of trust in your professor. Here is a poor guy who wants to really help and who wants to assist us. So just take advantage of that. That happens when you have the trust. Now, another way of reducing resistance to change is by participation. Some people don't want to participate. They say, no, leave me alone. I don't want to be getting involved in this. So somehow get them to be involved. Persuade them, talk to them, convince them. But especially if they have the expertise, if they are good in something, you should involve them. A good leader does that. If he sees a couple of people who are experts, but they just want to stay away from everything, he gets them on board. Involves them in a dialogue, makes them feel important, and gives them the opportunity and the platform to speak and to be listened to. So that way, you can break the resistance because these are people who are experts. Employees will believe them because they have the experience and they're experts. So advantage increases involvement, acceptance of the change itself. Nobody is going to resist the change because smart people are saying this. Experts are saying it. I kind of believe this now. It can be time consuming. Sometimes it might not give you a solution for a particular situation because they might not still be involved. There's another technique which is called as facilitation and support. Now, sometimes I might just need a little push and support. I'm capable, but I'm hesitant. Maybe it's a personality thing, or maybe it's a confidence crisis that I might have. So if you just push me a bit, encourage me a little, I might just take that and I'll be willing to accept that new responsibility. I will not resist change. This happened to me, dear. When my boss told me to become the assistant dean in Abu Dhabi campus, I was hesitant, extremely hesitant. I was, self-doubting. But then when my boss actually reimposed the trust he has, he believes that I could do it. And then he convinced me, persuaded me, saying, "You've done several other, administrative responsibilities. You know the school well, and you really care to do well, and you really care for our stakeholders, our students, and you understand that you will not make a compromise on certain quality elements, that you want to do something that is impactful, that enhances and strengthens our students' learning experience." He gave me that push, he facilitated that transition, and he gave me the complete freedom to do my own thing. So the trust is important. So facilitation and support can actually reduce the anxiety, can reduce the self-doubt that people might have, and they're happy to make those adjustments like me. I made those adjustments. I learned on the job. It's expensive, no guarantee of, I mean, it was a bit expensive because my dean had to pay me more, for example. I didn't come cheap. So it's good. I got some extra money for being the assistant dean. I was also the department assessment director, so I got paid there as well. Good for me. So negotiation is another technique for overcoming resistance to change. Sometimes you might have two groups which don't agree or don't come across the table to discuss. So you might want to negotiate. And you might want to convince these two teams separately before you bring them across the table. So negotiation is a separate skill. You have to give both the groups strong reasons why they should come and talk to each other. And what's the benefit and payoff if they came and worked together rather than staying at loggerheads? And that means negotiation actually reduces the resistance between the groups, makes them come across the table, discuss, and work together. Yeah, sometimes it can backfire. That's possible. Another technique is manipulation and co-optation. Yeah, if you're good at that, I've seen some people in Abu Dhabi campus, for example, who are very good at manipulation, positive manipulation. It's not negative, but it's positive manipulation. They're capable of going to companies, convincing them that our MBA program was really good. And even if they said, nah, we don't require an MBA, he convinced them saying, business skills are required for everybody. We had a cohort of students from the police. We had 20 MBA students only from the police. That's a lot of students. 20 is a good number. All police. Why would police require an MBA? And they said, no, we are not interested. But he went, he manipulated them. They're powerful people, police, right? But he got them convinced and said, business skills are required for everybody. You're managing the country's law and order. You got to understand the importance of strategy. You got to understand the importance of planning, organizing, leading, directing, motivating, rewarding, hiring the right set of people, controlling. All these elements are important for police, even more than anybody else. So he manipulated their thought process, and we had 20 good students from the police, all in our MBA program. Nice, huh? But not everybody is capable of that. And my campus dean, who he was, he did this, and we were very happy. We got 20 good students just from the police, and then we had other MBA students. So our MBA enrollments and registrations were very strong. Then you have the last, technique to overcome resistance is by force. Yeah, it might become illegal sometimes if you force somebody to do something. It might get into zone or areas which are gray. So I'm not a big advocate of forcing anything, but if you have to, you might want to try that. Governments do that. Certain political leaders can do that. In certain countries, it's maybe possible, but it actually creates a resentment, kind of defiance, and they become defensive, and they can actually, whoever is being affected forcefully can come back and become completely, um, disorientated. All those negative impacts can be there because these border on becoming illegal. in terms of how much of coercion or force that you want to apply for creating, for overcoming that resistance to change and for people to accept the change. That's the last technique. I don't see how you could use it, effectively and for the betterment of people or your employees. Learning objective 3, describe what managers need to know about employee stress. Now, when we talk change all the time, we're speaking so much about change, right? And why we need to change and how is change important. And if you don't change, you're not going to survive as a company. You probably created situations where employees are going to feel stress. So let's talk about stress. So change often creates stress. That's what I was saying. Yeah, and this is the stress levels in the major 6 major economies. United Kingdom tops them. 35% of employees feel extreme stress. Brazil, 34%. I was surprised seeing Brazil there. Germany, 33% of employees feel stress. United States, 32%. Global average is 29% of employees across the globe have stress. China is 17%, which is very good. With a kind of population with 1.4 billion people, a huge workforce in China, only 17% of employees have stress. Great job. And India, again, a large country in terms of population, 1.2, 1.3 billion people, large workforce, all young workforce, and then huge numbers in capital intensive and labor intensive industries both. And still, you only 17% of employees under stress. It's still something to be worried about, but at least it's much lesser than the global average, which makes it feel good. So stress is there because change will create stress. Symptoms of stress, it can be physical, it can be psychological, or it can be behavioral. Physical stress, I mean, it's the saddest thing that can happen to you. You might have heart problems, breathing problems, blood pressure issues, headaches, a potential of heart attacks and stuff like that. It's really terrible if you get into that situation. You might have weight issues, you might have appetite issues. A lot of physical issues can happen because of stress. Psychological, you might have tension, anxiety, irritability, boredom, procrastination. I think boredom is something that I see in your generation of people. If you don't do something, you feel bored very quickly. And that could be a symptom of stress, possibly. You postpone things frequently, again, stress. If you're supposed to be doing something, presenting something, submitting your reports, you're not able to do it on time, it could be because of stress. Not necessarily all the time, but it could be. Behavioral issues can be there. People are absenting from workplace, leaving one job and taking another job, changing jobs frequently, changes in eating habits. They probably sometimes even consume a lot of sugary products. You need that rush of sugar to keep yourself excited and focused. Or maybe you're taking more of caffeine and consuming alcohol. Sometimes you speak too fast, fidgeting. You're always, fidgeting with some objects all the time. You can't stay still. Sleep disorders. All these behavioral issues can happen because of stress. A quick question. How many of you feels stressed out because of so these are symptoms of stress and which we don't want to be dealing with every day. So it's good to manage stress. Let's see how, and of course, other stress causing factors, tasks at the workplace. You're playing the role of a teacher, you might play the role of a father, you might play the role of a leader, maybe the role of a decision maker. Sometimes you're taking tough decisions. I remember in Abu Dhabi when some banks were being merged. There was a merger of two banks every Thursday, because Friday was off. Friday and Saturday are holidays in Abu Dhabi. Every Thursday, my students who were bank managers, branch managers, they were taking tough decisions to lay off employees. And they told me, sir, it's so stressful to let go employees, to tell them you're fired, that tomorrow is your last day at the workplace, and to give them a pink slip and say, you have 2 months and 3 months, whatever wages, and then you can go. It is stressful because to let go of them means you're putting the whole family at risk. So role demands sometimes can be stressful. Tough decisions are stressful for individuals, even if they are leaders. Interpersonal demands between people. It could be between you and your boss, between you and your peers. It could be between employees, co-workers, or even at home, family related interpersonal issues, organization structure. Yeah, you have a question? Okay. So organization structural issues can be stressful sometimes. Leadership, you have a boss who gives you a hard time, who likes putting extra pressure all the time. Sales, sometimes sales guys, they put targets which are so difficult to achieve and they keep pushing. You still have to achieve those targets. It's sad, but that's the kind of leadership that you might have to deal with, and it's pretty stressful. Having a good boss is a great blessing, and I do have one. So, and yeah, family and personal issues can be a stress type. Personality type. See, type A personalities are those who cannot deal with free time. They have to be multitasking. They're obsessed with numbers. They're always thinking money. They're always thinking about achievements and thinking about goals. They want recognition all the time. These are personality type A. So they could be under stress. Type B, they are not obsessed with numbers. They're not focused on achieving goals. They're a bit laid back. Sometimes they might have issues because they get upset with type A people. So personality type B sometimes are upset with type A people. So they are equally stressed. So personality types can actually be sometimes creating extra stress. Family issues, personal issues can create stress. So you have to deal with it. This is a nice picture. Shows a person dressed for work, but he's having his time of meditating and relaxing and trying to de-stress. I think you all guys have to do some form of meditation. You don't have to sit like him. You can sit in easier ways. You can sit in your chair and still just stay calm and don't think about anything. Don't be preoccupied. Don't be surfing the internet. Don't be on social media. Just stay calm and relax. Maybe watch nature, listen to some quiet music if you think. Some white noise. Maybe it'll relax you. So reducing stress is what we call as stress management. So discuss techniques for, yeah, stress management is important at the workplace. Sometimes good companies create places where employees can go exercise. They have spas. They have places where they can have some recreational activities. And sometimes, companies, before the pandemic, of course, they even took their employees away from the workplace to have a day off or a couple of days off for a conference or for a proper, brainstorming session or for redoing their strategy, but different from the workplace. Taking them away from the workplace can manage stress. There are plenty of things that companies do these days in terms of providing healthy food, focusing on nutrition, time for exercise, maybe supporting membership to certain spas and giving them free access to, say gyms and places of aerobics and stuff like that. So there are a lot of activities that companies do so that employees are not so stressed and their physical, psychological well-being is not affected. So that's about reducing stress. We'll come off to the last topic, which is innovation. Now, there are two things that we spoke about earlier. I told you that creativity is about creating those ideas, generating as many as possible novel ideas and useful ideas. But if you convert those ideas into something that is useful as a product or a service or a method of operation, that is when creativity becomes innovation. I have ideas, but I do nothing with it. I'm still creative. But if I can convert some of those ideas into something that has an impact on any of my stakeholders or my family, or I can turn that into a product or a service, some solution for a particular problem in the society or a community that I live in, I think that's when we call it as an innovation. Now, innovation has these steps as a process. I like these steps: perception. How do you perceive anything? How do you perceive a problem? Even a problem, you can perceive it as an opportunity to think outside the box, to generate ideas, to come up with possible solutions. Incubation, when you do a lot of research on those solutions, when you do a lot of research on those ideas that you're thinking of solving a particular problem, that kind of preparation, the due diligence process based on research is extremely important. Inspiration is when you can actually mobilize other people around you to support your business idea, to support your new product idea. You inspire action, you inspire people to come together, to collaborate, to share your vision. That's inspiration. So you have an idea, You have plenty of ideas to solve that particular problem. You do plenty of research as an incubation process, and then you get this moment of inspiration. You say, wow, I've come up with something that's really good. And that can possibly happen if that inspiration is shared among the team members. And that's when you have something that's really innovative. It could be a product or a service or a mode of operation that can help society, that can help communities, or that can help the planet. Now, here are variables that encourage innovation. Structure, the company itself. Organic structures are very flexible. They are not completely formalized, not fully standardized. So there's plenty of openness to new ways of thinking, new approaches. So that flexibility that is afforded by organic structures is very important. Another important thing, like 3M example that I was giving you, abundant resources. If you don't have resources, it could be financial resources, access to smart people, the human capital. If you don't have resources, you're not going to be able to support innovation for too long. But if you have that, say Apple, for example, has a lot of resources, high inter-unit communication. Again, as I said, intergroup development as one of the OD interventions. How do departments coordinate with each other? How do these different teams working on different product ideas collaborate with each other, share best practices, share ideas? That's very important. Communication has to be fast, fluid, and useful. Minimal time pressure. Suppose I put too much of pressure on you. Do this, do this, do this, do this. How can you be creative? But if I let you do 2 or 3 things and do them properly, I give you time, you will come up with something really innovative. But if you're doing too many things at the same time, you're not going to be creative. You're not going to be innovative. So it's counterproductive. You'll be stressed. So that's minimal time pressure. Time pressure is okay, but it should be minimal. It should not be too much. Work and non-work support. Google does that. Google actually takes care of all your needs. Suppose you're trying to find a new school for your kids, they'll help you do that. You have flat tires, they might even help you fix it. You're trying to buy a new home, they'll get you some support to find a place to live. So they take care of all your sundry activities so that you can focus on the job, bring in your best to the workplace. So to me, Google is a classical example of having the right culture of openness, where ideas are being shared, ideas are being respected. In all your non-work related activities are taken care of by Google so that you can focus all your creative talent in creating something new for Google itself. So to me, the organizational variables extremely important. Then you're talking of the human resources that you have. See, having smart people is a key for innovation. I don't want to be hiring people who don't think outside the box, who are very conventional, who are very compartmentalized, who are rigid and fixated. I want to hire people who are smart, who think outside the box, who are very creative, who challenge status quo, who are willing to speak up. And of course, I can continue to train them and develop them, giving them new skills and competences that are required. If I did that, I'm pretty good to go. High job security. As long as you're performing, as long as you're delivering, your job is secure. I think some sense of job security is required for sustaining innovation and creative ideas. Again, creative people have smart people in place. Cultural variables, 3M, as I was saying, acceptance of ambiguity. Uncertainty is okay. You might not, every new product idea might not work. Every great idea may not turn up into a product or service. Tolerance of the impractical. Sometimes they try bizarre things. 3M's, wet sandpaper, wet or dry. Sandpaper, which is used in painting jobs. 3M created a sandpaper which can be used on wet surfaces and still it'll deliver. It'll do its job. Tolerance of impractical. Sometimes you thought sandpaper cannot work on wet surfaces, but 3M made it possible. Low external controls, because see, each team is given some freedom. Each team can work on their own product idea. There's not much of interference. Excessive controls will stifle innovation. But here in 3M, they give you a lot of freedom. Tolerance of risk. You might fail, but it's okay. Tolerance of conflict. You might come up and say, no, you're wrong. I have a better method. I have a better idea. And that's okay. Focus on ends. We want to create something. We want to solve a particular problem for a customer. We want to give solutions. That's focusing on the ends. Open system, that means we are ready to take in criticism. We are open to ideas. We are open to, other teams telling us better ways of doing things, positive feedback. See, anything that's going on good, you need to reinforce it, recognize it. Positive feedback is a great thing. All these are cultural variables that support innovation, the kind of people that support innovation, the kind of organization structure which supports innovation. I think we spoke about each of that, so I'm not going to repeat myself. Flexible structures, resources, financial or human capital, collaboration between departments, not some pressure, but not too much pressure. Google's example of non-work support, which is important. We spoke about all the cultural aspects. You know, I think Google, 3M, Tesla, all these companies, great companies, are the ones which have some acceptance of uncertainty. They want to try something outside the box, and they don't have this, eyeball control. They give you some elbow space, and they're okay if you make mistakes, and they're okay if you fail, and they're happy, uh, confronting and coming out with other ways of thinking. And they're focused on giving solutions, something that's practical, that's useful, that's of high quality, and open systems. There's plenty of sharing of ideas between organizational units. And when you do good things, you get the kind of recognition and positive feedback. We're ending up with this topic, HR and innovation. I'll actually, in Netflix, I'll show you, this is the last slide. So I'm stopping here because I just basically want to go back to Netflix and show you more. So we'll stop here. This is the end of the chapter.